Welcome to Learning English, where you can level up your English skills. Here, we use stories that are slow, clear, and enjoyable to help you learn. Just listen, relax, and appreciate the process. 1. Introduction. July contains a very special day, which falls on the 4th of the month. In one particular country, people refer to it as the 4th of July. That country is the United States, where the day is also known as Independence Day. What makes this day so important? Why is it a holiday in the United States? This story will provide the answers. It will clarify why the 4th of July is a significant date and tell you about events that happened long ago. The events that took place occurred in the year 1776. That was a very long time in the past. Over 200 years ago? To properly understand this day, we must look back in time. We need to learn about the United States before it existed as a country. Prior to 1776, the land was organized differently. Large areas of the land were controlled by a distant country. This nation was Britain, and it governed 13 main territories. These territories were known as colonies, meaning there were 13 colonies under British rule. Life in these colonies was not always simple, and the people living there began to feel dissatisfied. They disliked the rules imposed by Britain and objected to paying money to the British government. They felt that their voices were not being heard by Britain. Tensions between the colonies and Britain escalated. British soldiers were stationed in the colonies, leading to occasional fights between the colonists and the soldiers. These conflicts grew more serious. In 1775, a war began. It was a war fought between the 13 colonies and the nation of Britain. When the war first started, not everyone desired complete freedom from Britain. Some colonists hoped the situation would improve and that Britain would reform its rules. However, circumstances did not get better. A growing number of people in the colonies started to adopt a new perspective. They began to consider the idea of being independent. To be independent is to be free from the control of another country. A particular pamphlet was very influential in changing many people's opinions. A man authored this document. It was titled Common Sense. This pamphlet cogently argued why the colonies ought to be free, which inspired many people to support independence. So by 1776, amid the war, sentiments were shifting. More people desired to be free. Representatives from the 13 colonies gathered. They assembled to discuss the crucial concept of independence. The 4th of July is the celebrated date because it marks a vital step toward achieving this independence. This story will detail the necessary steps. It will introduce the people who contributed and describe the significant document they composed. It will explain how the colonies chose to form a new nation. Today, the 4th of July is a major holiday in the United States. It is a federal holiday. This signifies its importance for the entire nation. It is typically a day for get-togethers with family and friends. People host parties at night. They observe special lights in the sky. These displays are known as fireworks. Parades are also held in numerous towns and cities. People wave flags and celebrate their nation's history. The holiday serves as a day to commemorate the past. It is a day for remembering the nation's origins and the principles of freedom and independence. It stands as a symbol of the United States. It represents the nation's founding and its desire to be self-governing. Story will provide more details about that era. It will tell you about the courageous individuals who sought freedom. It will lay out the sequence of events that led to July 4th, 1776, helping you to grasp why this day holds such importance in the United States. Learn about Independence Day. 2. Before that day, very long time ago. Preceding the important date we commemorate, life was different in a region of North America. This vast land was not yet a free country. It was governed by a powerful nation. Located across the Great Ocean, this nation was Great Britain. The territories in North America under British control were known as colonies, and there were 13 of them in total. These 13 colonies were distinct regions, yet they all had to adhere to the laws set by the government in Britain. A great number of people inhabited these colonies, building homes, cultivating the land, and creating businesses. For some time, life proceeded under British authority. But as the years went on, the colonists began to feel a deep sense of unhappiness. They believed the regulations from Britain were unfair. Britain established numerous laws and demanded money, such as taxes, from the colonies. However, the colonists had no representation in the British government to voice their concerns or participate in lawmaking. This led to a feeling of being treated unjustly. This sense of injustice and anger intensified. At times, it resulted in severe problems and disputes. Colonists clashed with British soldiers who were present in their towns and cities. These altercations were not minor disagreements. They were often violent episodes that highlighted the severe breakdown in relations between the colonies and Britain. These serious conflicts and rising anger culminated in a major event. In 1775, a war broke out. This war, between the 13 colonies and Britain, was named the Revolutionary War. It was an extremely challenging and perilous period for all who lived in the colonies. When this war initially started, a minority of people in the 13 colonies wished to be entirely separate and independent from Britain. The majority simply wanted Britain to alter its policies and treat them more equitably. The notion of forming a completely new, free nation felt like a distant dream, perhaps one too large or risky to pursue. But the war waged on, and the issues with Britain did not improve. As the conflict continued and hardships mounted, the colonists' feelings underwent a significant transformation. They realized that their connection to Britain was a source of great difficulty and suffering. They began to contemplate more seriously the prospect of being truly free and self-governing. A very influential piece of writing helped many people to see this important idea in a new light. It was a pamphlet titled Common Sense. This document was widely read and very popular. In straightforward and clear language, it explained why the colonies should sever ties with Britain and become independent. It argued that it was natural and just for the people in the colonies to govern themselves, rather than be ruled by a distant king and government. Common sense had a profound impact. It helped convince more and more people that independence was not merely a dream, but the most logical and essential path for their future. Therefore, in the period before the pivotal date when the colonies made their ultimate choice, the desire for freedom grew increasingly strong in the hearts and minds of many people throughout the 13 colonies. This era of escalating discontent, war, and evolving ideas was the essential prelude to their decision to be free. 3. The decision in Philadelphia. Leaders from the 13 colonies convened in the large city of Philadelphia. They gathered inside a prominent building known as the State House. This took place in the summer of 1776. In June, a leader named Richard Henry Lee made a speech. He put forth a momentous proposal. He declared that the colonies should be free from Britain, the nation that governed them. This was a bold and audacious idea. The other leaders listened intently and began to debate this concept. They discussed it for a considerable amount of time. The conversation was extremely serious. Becoming free represented a monumental step that would bring about many changes. Consequently, they did not vote on Mr. Lee's proposal right away. They required more time for consideration before taking a vote. They chose to take another action first. They felt it was necessary to explain their reasons for wanting to be free. They needed to commit these reasons to writing. So, the leaders selected a small committee of men. These men were assigned a very important task. The duty of this small group was to draft a document. This document was to present the arguments for freedom. It had to articulate why the colonies could no longer remain under British dominion. The writing needed to be persuasive and powerful. It had to inform the world of their reasons for choosing a new direction. The small committee of men accepted this significant responsibility. They began their work, starting to deliberate on the most effective words to use. These were words that would express their yearning for independence. As they worked, the other leaders waited, knowing this document was a prerequisite for the final vote. This meeting in Philadelphia was filled with critical thoughts and actions. The concept of freedom was gaining strength daily. The leaders and the small committee were working to make this concept a reality. They were preparing to announce their reasons for wanting to become a free country. This was a pivotal moment in their history. The small group worked diligently on the document. They understood the importance of their assignment. They aimed to write in a way that everyone could comprehend, with words that conveyed why the colonies must become independent. The leaders in the State House were filled with hope for a new future, a future in which the colonies were free. Ideas about freedom were solidifying. They were being translated into words by the committee. The leaders awaited the committee's completion. This step was essential before they could formally vote yes to freedom. The committee knew their words would carry great weight. They sought to make the document flawless. The idea of freedom was the central theme in Philadelphia. It was transforming into a reality, and the committee was writing the first words of this new reality. The leaders waited as the time for freedom drew near. 4. Writing important words. Leaders appointed a small committee which consisted of 5 men. They were influential individuals. Their task was immense. They were charged with writing a document that would outline why the colonies desired to be free. Several men on the committee were very famous. One was Thomas Jefferson, another was John Adams, and Benjamin Franklin was also among them. These men were intelligent and had well-developed ideas about liberty. Thomas Jefferson served as the primary author. He sat down and began to compose the text, thinking carefully about each word. The document needed to be powerful and clear. It had to communicate to everyone why the colonies could no longer be associated with Britain. This was not an easy piece of writing. They wanted to articulate the reasons with great clarity and to show the world the justification for their actions. They were separating from a mighty nation and required sound reasoning. Thomas Jefferson drafted the initial version. The other men then reviewed it. They discussed the wording and sometimes made changes. They collaborated, aiming to make the document perfect. The paper declared that all men are created equal. It stated that every person has rights, including the crucial rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These were profound ideas. For many people, these were new concepts. The document also detailed the problems with the British king, stating he had not treated the colonies well. It enumerated many of his wrongful actions. These were the justifications. For seeking freedom, composing this document took time. The men worked diligently, aware that this paper was vital for the future. It was to be the voice of the 13 colonies. It would speak for every person who longed for freedom. The name of this significant document is the Declaration of Independence. This paper remains famous today. People continue to read it. It recounts the story of why the United States was formed as a new nation. The 5 men completed their work on the document. It was prepared to be presented to the other leaders. It was ready to announce their decision to the world. It was a document about freedom and new beginnings. They finished the draft. The other leaders had to review it and agree with its content. It was a major step. The colonies were moving closer to being free. The Declaration of Independence was more than just text on a page. It was a promise of a new country. Founded on new ideas about people and their rights, the men felt the gravity of their assignment. Words was a great responsibility, and they wanted to do it correctly. They wanted the world to understand and their own people to feel empowered. The document spoke of the future. It was a future where the colonies were not governed by a distant king, a future where they could create their own laws, and a future where people had a greater voice in their own lives. Thomas Jefferson's words were potent. They helped mold the ideals of the new nation. John Adams and Benjamin Franklin also made significant contributions. They formed an effective team, working for many days on this crucial text. They sat together, discussed the concepts, and selected words with care. Every sentence held importance. They aimed for the document to be easy to understand yet forceful. It had to explain everything clearly. Why did they seek freedom? What was wrong with the previous system? What would the new system be like? The paper needed to answer all these questions. 5 men labored to find the most suitable words. The document had to represent all the people in the 13 colonies. It was a huge undertaking for 5 men, but they knew it was essential. The paper had to be perfect before the leaders could vote on it. It was the reason for their struggle and the foundation of their freedom. 5. They choose to be free. The representatives from the 13 colonies reconvened in the city of Philadelphia. This was a momentous occasion for everyone living in the colonies. The date was the 2nd of July, in the year 1776. The leaders had gathered to make a monumental decision, one that would permanently alter the future of the colonies. It was a choice regarding their freedom. They had a critical proposal to vote on, introduced by Mr. Lee, a delegate from Virginia. His proposal asserted that the 13 colonies should no longer be governed by Britain. He argued they should be free and independent states, distinct from the British monarch and his government. The leaders had debated this proposal for many days, discussing the justifications for their freedom. The moment finally arrived to make their ultimate choice. They needed to vote on Mr. Lee's proposal. The leaders cast their votes on July 2, 1776. The vote was of immense importance, resulting in a clear decision for freedom. Nearly all the representatives voted in favor. This was an almost unanimous vote for liberty. Only the delegates from New York abstained from voting yes immediately, though they consented later. Thus, it was evident that the colonies desired freedom. They had collectively made their choice. This vote on July 2nd marked the instant the leaders formally opted for independence. It was the day they explicitly declared their separation from Great Britain. They resolved to no longer be under the authority of the British king. This was a courageous and solemn act. It signified their full commitment to waging war for their freedom. They were prepared to establish their own country. As one of the key leaders, John Adams, recognized the magnitude of this day. He considered it the most significant day. Immediately after the vote, he wrote a letter to his wife, Abigail. He informed her that July 2nd was the day to be remembered forever. He predicted that in the future, people would celebrate this day annually. As a grand holiday, he envisioned it as a day of happiness and festivity for the new nation. John Adams described the types of celebrations he foresaw for this day. Imagine large parades in the streets and public gatherings for all, he wrote. About people engaging in games and sports, he also pictured loud noises, such as the firing of cannons and the ringing of bells from churches and public buildings. He imagined bonfires and other illuminations at night like fireworks. He believed these celebrations would occur everywhere, from one end of the land to the other, uniting all citizens in their decision for freedom. So, July 2nd, 1776, was the day the leaders made their choice. They voted for liberty. They voted to become independent states. It was a day filled with great hope and immense risk. They knew the struggle was not over, but their decision had been made. They chose to be free. This vote initiated the process of building a new nation, one founded on the ideals of freedom and self-governance. It was a pledge they made to themselves and to the world. They were ready to stand independently and shape their own destiny. 6. The paper is ready to days after. The leaders cast their vote. Another event took place. It was the 4th of July in 1776. On this day, the leaders finalized their significant document. They officially approved the text. This document was named the Declaration of Independence. It was a profoundly important piece of writing. The paper contained many words. It explained why the 13 colonies wished to be free. It declared that they no longer wanted to be ruled by Britain. It announced that the colonies were now new free states. This document created the United States of America. Because the leaders finalized and adopted this paper on the 4th of July, this date became the day of celebration. It was the new country's birthday. People did not celebrate the 2nd of July. They celebrated the 4th of July instead. Immediately after the document was ready, the news was shared. The paper was read aloud in public squares so that everyone could hear the words about freedom. People were joyful and excited. To demonstrate their freedom from the British king, some people engaged in symbolic acts. They held mock funerals for the king, which was a way to signify that his authority in America was over. It was a symbol that they were now in charge of their own affairs. People also celebrated with music and noise. Parades filled the streets. Musicians played instruments, and cannons and guns were fired into the air. This was a loud method to express their happiness and newfound liberty. The document was a major step. It was the written confirmation that the colonies were free. This made the 4th of July a very special day. It was the day the Declaration of Independence was made available for everyone to see and hear. It was the day the new country showed the world its reasons for being free. 7. Early celebrations. People started to commemorate this special day each year. They wanted to remember the significant date of July the 4th, the first large-scale annual party occurred in the city of Philadelphia in 1777. The war was still ongoing at that time, but people nevertheless celebrated this new day of freedom. For this first major celebration in 1777, many exciting events took place. People watched colorful fireworks illuminate the night sky. Ships fired their cannons 13 times, creating a loud boom. This was a noisy tribute to the 13 colonies that were now free. People also lit large bonfires, which brightened the night. The city was adorned with bright lights everywhere. It was a special way to express joy about the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. The following year, in 1778, a prominent leader helped his soldiers celebrate the anniversary. This leader was George Washington. He provided his soldiers with extra rations of rum. This gesture helped boost their morale and remember the important day for which they were fighting. In 1781, a part of the new country took another significant step. The region known as Massachusetts declared July the 4th an official state holiday. This meant it became a special day by law in that area. It was the first state to make the 4th of July a legal holiday. After the war finally concluded, celebrations grew even larger and more widespread. People organized many types of parties and public events. There were parades in the streets featuring music. People played instruments and held concerts for everyone to enjoy. Sometimes they fired muskets into the air as a celebratory gesture. Leaders would address the people at these large gatherings, speaking about the new country and its future. These speeches helped foster a sense of unity and strength among the people. They began to feel like one nation, not just separate territories. Over time, celebrating the 4th of July evolved into a very strong and important tradition across the new nation. Various groups and cities developed their own unique ways to celebrate this day of independence at times. Even different political factions in large cities held separate parties to display their spirit. People would gather with their families and friends. They would have outdoor picnics or share meals at home. The celebrations were a blend of large, noisy public events and smaller private ones with just family and friends. All of them demonstrated the significance of the day the new country was founded and chose to be free. 8. Today's celebrations a long time after the initial festivities. The nation established July 4th as a special holiday for all citizens. This occurred in the year 1870. Even later, in 1941, it was designated as a paid day off from work. Now, the day is less focused on past politics. It serves as a holiday for the entire country and a symbol of the nation itself. The 4th of July arrives during the summer. The weather is typically warm and sunny, so people enjoy participating in fun outdoor activities. Families come together on this day. It is a popular time for family reunions. They frequently host outdoor parties such as barbecues or picnics, cooking food and eating together in parks or backyards. There are many additional ways people celebrate today. In cities and towns, one can often see parades where people march in the streets accompanied by music. Special events like concerts, fairs, and games also take place. People enjoy gathering and having fun on this summer day. After dark, a major part of the celebration is the light show in the sky. These are known as fireworks. Crowds gather to watch the brilliant colors and patterns. The fireworks create loud sounds and illuminate the night sky. It is a spectacular show for many. Two key symbols of the day are the nation's flag and a special song. The flag, which is red, white, and blue, can be seen everywhere. People display flags on their homes and along the streets. The special song is the country's national anthem. People sing it to feel united and proud of their heritage. So today, the 4th of July, is a day for family, friends, fun, and national pride. It is a day to commemorate the country's history while also enjoying a summer day with others. A time for parties, music, food, and dazzling lights in the night sky.